Hospital porters, pride and dignity, stop the New World Order. Welcome to Hapanwo TV. And welcome to this, the Shill Squad 2, Ben Fellows. And as you can probably guess from the title, this is a follow-up movie. There is a Shill Squad 1, it's called the Shill Squad. It's a film I uploaded in November last year, and I advise you, if you've not seen it yet, please go and watch that film. There's a link in the description box, as per tradition, where you can actually go and watch that film. I've also got a radio show there. I did a Hapanwo show called a Shill Special, which covers a lot of the same issues as that film, with a few extras, including some of what you're about to see now. Now, it's Ben Fellows. Ben Fellows is the guy you saw in the titles, black guy with a suit, who was outside court when that photo was taken. He did go to court, as I will explain. He's someone who came to the attention of the Truth Movement in 2012 because he was involved with the London Olympics. Remember the Apocalyptics, when the world was supposed to end and the aliens were supposed to come down? Yeah, he was involved with that. And he worked for G4S, the security firm, which was involved in supposedly handling the security of the Olympic Games, but didn't do its job properly and eventually lost the contract, which gave the government the excuse to militarise the Games even further and have even more troops on the street and in the stadium. So I expect that was actually part of the reason why it failed, accidentally on purpose. But anyway, Ben Fellows was one of the guys who blew the whistle on all that. And he was actually an actor. He was, as when he was younger, he was an actor, and he actually claimed that he was abused by Kenneth Clarke, who was Chancellor of the Exchequer at the time and a member of the Bilderberg Group. And Clarke sued him, and they went to court, and Ben Fellows was cleared, although we didn't hear anything more about it after that. Ben actually organised a conference with his wife Jackie called Ben X. Unfortunately, they had to cancel that conference, but I was due to speak there, and I was really looking forward to that. And then they came up with an idea, Ben and Jackie, and the idea was to go to India and seek an audience with the Dalai Lama to try and to do something about child abuse in this country. And they actually went to the GoFundMe. They set up a GoFundMe account, and they said this: "My name is Ben Fellows, and I am an investigative journalist and filmmaker based in Birmingham, in the United Kingdom. I am raising funds for myself and my partner Jackie, who is supporting me with her own funds as well, to travel to see the Dalai Lama in India. This is a spiritual journey, as I have been persecuted by my own government for speaking out against paedophiles and child abusers. So I am seeking advice about what we can do to deal with this problem from His Holiness, as I believe he is a very wise and educated man who was chosen for that reason to lead his people." And so that was on the GoFundMe page, and Ben and Jackie wanted to raise some money to pay for this trip to India to see the Dalai Lama. Not everyone thought that was a good idea though, because I was actually contacted by two people independently on Facebook, that big battleground again, yeah, saying, "Dear Ben, do you know that Ben Fellows is trying to exploit vulnerable people to raise money on false pretences to defraud the public? Don't you think that's awful?" This is what they wrote to me, and they told me. And so I replied to them, "Dear," and I used their names, these two ladies. I said, "Okay, oh, is it? Well, if that's the case, that is awful. What is the nature of this fraud? What is Ben Fellows actually doing?" And they replied, "He's raising money through this GoFundMe account. People are sending him money, and all he's spending it on is a trip to India." Ben Fellows is raising money in his GoFundMe account for a trip to India. And in the GoFundMe account it actually says, "I want to travel to see the Dalai Lama in India." And what Ben actually spent this money on was travelling expenses to go to India. Yes, I spotted that logical flaw too, just like you did. What these ladies are essentially saying is that Ben Fellows is committing fraud because he's raising money to go to India, when he's telling everybody what he's really doing with it instead is raising money to go to India. Alright, well anyway, I replied explaining, that there's no fraud here. He's spending the money, what he's telling everyone he's spending the money on. And they replied, it's very strange, the reply they gave me was completely unrelated to the point we were making. And I said, look, so do you see what's the problem? And then they just went off on a completely different subject. And it didn't take long for a very familiar picture to emerge, and we've seen it before, and I've talked about it before with Sonia Poulton, with Danielle Laverite, with Darren Perks, with Kevin Annett. It's the very, very same thing. What these two ladies were doing were trying to start a truth mob. And truth mobs are one of these annoying products of the Shill Squad. I mean, when the Shill Squad is on patrol, very soon truth mobs follow. A truth mob is basically where, as I think I explained it actually in the first movie without actually using the phrase truth mob, it's basically the people who are against this other person will gather others around them like a snowball, and they'll take over groups on Facebook and things like that. And before you know it, it's like it's a torches and pitchforks thing, you know. It's like that. That's a truth mob. What actually happened was, I mean, I managed to get some more information from these two ladies about it, and it turned out it was this very, very familiar picture, and I predicted it. I knew that they'd say this before they did. They were having they'd had a personal dispute with Ben Fellows, and had then, and as a result, aggrandised it into this fantasy scenario, in which Ben Fellows is a bad person generally, he's a shill, etc., etc. And many a truth mob is thus generated, and it's exactly the same thing with Danielle Laverite and the Ken Fried movement, exactly the same thing. But then these ladies then struck back. They said, look, because, I mean, I already knew this was happening, because they said, Ben Fellows has been posting pictures of himself on Facebook, him and Jackie, in Austria, in Hungary, in Greece, in Turkey, and things like that. And I was like... And things like that, and they'd be filming themselves on trains. Well, yeah, what's wrong with that? What's happened is Ben and Jackie decided to travel overland to India. It's actually cheaper. They used they went using the cheapest routes possible overland. And they basically went through India, to India, across Europe, to Turkey and the Middle East, and into India. Right? Well, what's wrong with that? Okay. They're going through these countries on a train. I mean, what are they expected to do? Just put a blindfold on and keep their head down like that, and not look out the window even at the countries they're going through, in case it means they're defrauding people because they're using the funds to visit these countries. Now, why shouldn't they stop and see the sights? This is probably going to be the only chance they ever get to see these places. They've never been to them before. You know, why do you want to get out and visit the sights? I mean, you can't expect them to travel through these exotic lands and just not occasionally wander at the new locations and the famous locations. And they actually went in winter. They actually went in winter, over winter. So they didn't. If they wanted to just have a free holiday and defraud people by raising money, they'd have gone in the summer when it's nice weather. They actually, when India is hot all year round, I think. But in some of the countries they went through, like Turkey, it was freezing. There was snow on the ground, and they were wrapped up in woolly thick jackets, winter jackets, and woolly hats. And the things I knew this was happening because Ben and Jackie were actually posting these pictures on my wall themselves. I don't see what's the bloody problem. I mean, I think Ben Fellows' idea to go and talk to the Dalai Lama is an excellent one. I mean, if any famous political figure is willing to help with the child abuse scandal in Britain, then it is probably the Dalai Lama. He's the 14th Dalai Lama, and he's an interesting chap. He's a very, very wise man. I've read his book called Everyday Buddhism, I think it was called, something like that. He himself his entire people are exiled from their country, from Tibet. They've had their own country basically taken over by China. There's been massive political persecution against the Tibetan people and the Buddhist religion. The Chinese have moved. They've set up colonies they've basically done exactly what Israel have done in Palestine, and they've moved lots and lots of Chinese people into Tibet, and deliberately just so they can say, look, this is part of China, because lots of Chinese people live there. I wish Ben and Jackie the very best. I really do. I mean, I don't know how I don't think they got there in the end, but I mean, I do. I wish them the very best, and I hoped they would actually go and see the Dalai Lama and get him involved if they could with this quest to stop this institutional child abuse that's poisoning the world. I mean, this is what I really can't stand about these truth mobbers and these shill squads, these shill squad members. I mean, the people who tend to get the most aggravations are one of the few people who actually do anything. They actually do something. They don't sit there talking about it online, you know, rabbiting on about it on forums which no one reads, and then having to go at other people within the truth movement. All right, they actually get out there and they do something. And I know exactly what's going to happen now. You will see I'm right. Okay, I bet my bottom dollar on this. There's going to be some comments. You now are going to post some comments in the chat box, in the comments box, saying, Ben, what are you saying? Don't you know that Ben Fellows is a shill? Don't you know he's horrible, he's evil, he's A, B, and C. He's done A, B, and C. Oh, shame on you for supporting him and not criticising him and stuff like that. I bet my bottom dollar I'm going to get those comments, aren't I? Okay, right, if you want to post comments explaining how I'm wrong about Ben Fellows, okay, bear in mind I've met Ben Fellows, I've spoken to him, and I've talked to him on Skype. I'm hoping to get him onto Panwo Radio soon. I've talked to both Ben and Jackie. If you believe that Ben Fellows is a shill, bounder, cad, or whatever other description you like, okay, I want to see evidence, alright? If you are, one, polite to me, and two, provide evidence, I will listen to you. I promise you. Okay, but if you are planning to do the usual thing, which everyone does, almost everybody does, and posting it in the comments box, Ben Fellows is a shill, and I know he's a shill because I can make up very creative and insults when I describe him, and I can use lots of different adjectives and synonyms, and provide all kinds of witty put downs for people like you who support him and don't criticise him, etc., etc. I can use lots and lots of rhetoric and make myself look very, very sophisticated and very, very worldly wise in the face of all all you dupes and you plodding morons. Okay, if you're going to do that, don't waste your time, because the very purpose of these two films is to explain exactly why that's wrong. And it's really strange, it's very sad actually, that some people actually do not understand this. They do not understand the difference between logic and rhetoric. They don't understand the difference between rational discussion and sophistry. I recommend you go and watch Stefan Molyneux in his Introduction to Philosophy. Go and watch his talk on his videos on sophistry. Oh, that's a long subject. I could do an entire video on this one subject, but you see, I mean, the thing about it is, like when I wrote my article, The Shill Shaming of Danielle La Verite, and I had Danielle on my radio show, and I made the video. I talked about Danielle in the first Shill Squad movie. The Kent Freedom movement responded, all right, but they responded by saying, "Shame on you, Ben." They called me a fat wanker, and a coward and a mug, and they posted a list of questions for me to answer, most of which I actually covered in the article anyway. I mean, I went through the Kent Freedom Movement's article very, very closely. I gave him a fair hearing, I think. A fair, unbiased hearing, I do believe that. So, truth mobs. Right, we're going to talk a little bit more about truth mobs. Now, have you ever been in a truth mob? Have you ever been, or felt yourself being dragged down into a truth mob? Because I believe when a truth mob emerges in your favourite, it may be on your favourite Facebook group, it may be in a YouTube's comment section, it may be on Twitter, in a Twitter thread, it may be on any form of social media or a forum somewhere. You may suddenly understand what I'm talking about here now when I say that. You may instantly see there are warning signs along the road, and I think you probably already recognise them just based on the description I've given you. And I think you just need to understand what they mean in full. I advise you to heed them whenever you see them, because it's very easy, if you don't heed them, to find yourself just getting sucked in. And they could take many forms. For instance, a comments box underneath a Facebook post becoming heated, a heated argument, posters becoming more verbally aggressive, and you know, before long that thread is going to cross over that line. It's going to cross over that line when the chain reaction begins, and the fission of meaningless insults takes off. And after that, happens, all the comments just become a self-sustaining downward spiral of ego battling, abuse. And when that happens, it's no point trying to get back into the discussion and have a rational conversation, because it's impossible. I know, because I've come in on these types of comment threads halfway through, and I've tried to make rational points, and I've immediately been just lambasted. I mean, the Hampstead case is a good example of that. It's now not possible to discuss the Hampstead case at all. It's whether it's true or not is just no longer a question. If you'll get coming into it now, you won't be able to tell, because it's literally like walking in on a barroom brawl and trying to work out exactly what the fight was about. And the only thing you can do is actually just get out of that conversation before it falls over that event horizon and it's all over, and you're sucked down with it. You find yourself being insulted, and anyone who feels insulted feels hurt. They want to strike back. That's natural. So be aware of the signs. Be aware of the signs, and analyse your own thoughts and feelings whenever these sort of conflicts arise. And this is another thing. Introspection. Introspection is a very important skill to learn. It's the ability to watch your own mental landscape as if it was somebody else's, and analyse it as if you were analysing another person's behaviour. So that way you can avoid the fate that a lot of us have suffered, including me. I mean, I've got caught up in these things. You eventually just become a foot soldier for a truth mob. So what are these warning signs? Well, I'll tell you what. I'll go through a 7-point system, a 7-point list of questions that you need to ask yourself. And if the answer to any of these questions is yes, or affirmative, or positive, then you are in serious risk of joining a truth mob, without even knowing it. So let's have a look at them. So we begin with the first question, which I think you should be asking, the first of the 7 questions that you need to ask yourself if you are concerned that you might be about to join the truth mob. Number 1. How crucial is the resolution of this conflict to the world at large? In other words, if, for instance, you don't stop Darren Perks, will we not have disclosure? And if we do stop Darren Perks, will the next day we get disclosure? And all these, and that's just one example of many things we're talking about. So that's the thing to balance it out. The issue that you're being asked to take up arms and fight in, with all your strength and everything you have, what good does it do, apart from on the personal level, a personal dispute between somebody else, one person and another? How much good does it do to the rest of the world at large and the issues that affect the whole world? Question 2. At a fundamental level, is this conflict one of personalities rather than the wider issues affecting the well-being of the world beyond? Now this is another way of asking question 1, which is rather like, in a sense, the leader of your truth mob, cult leader I hesitate to use, but that's not entirely inaccurate. Does it turn out they have a personal issue with the target, the enemy of the truth mob, the person you're getting your torches and pitchforks out to attack? Because very often what you'll find is they have fallen out on a personal level shortly beforehand. This is certainly the case with Daniel La Verite. So that's another question you need to ask when dealing with truth mobs. Question number 3. Is your involvement in this conflict taking you away from your usual research and activism, your work on issues such as UFOs, TV licensing, chemtrails, the bedroom tax, etc.? This is a very important one, because what you'll find is you may be focused on perfectly legitimate issues, which is the ones that I've mentioned before. The chemtrails, the UFO disclosure, the GMO food sprouting out of the gaps between the bricks in your wall, things like that, which is enormous and multifaceted and covering our world from every angle. Is what you're doing this? You're in the middle of this, and has anyone, as the leader of the truth mob, been on the group and saying, why are you talking about all this? Don't you think we've got more important things to focus on right now? We have, Mr. John Doe here, who we've stirred up this truth mob to attack. So drop what you're doing. Forget all these issues. Forget the TV licensing. It doesn't matter about the chemtrails. It doesn't matter if people are dying of hunger because they can't afford to heat their homes. Okay, we have an issue to score with Daniel the Verite, you know, or Darren Perks. Okay, have you ever found that? Have you ever found that is what you are? If you're not actually doing it, you're being encouraged to and being chivied and chased and chided to do, or pressure is being put on you to do that. That's another question you need to ask yourself. Right, now this is an important one, and it's very, very close to what I myself have experienced. Number 4. Do you find yourself feeling confusion and hostility towards people you otherwise would feel no resentment towards, when they decline to stand by you in your activities with this conflict, even when they do not support the other side either? Now, this is a point. If someone you've got on with perfectly on Facebook for a while, then you suddenly find yourself that they will not get involved with you in your crusade against whoever is the target of this truth mob, even though they don't like or support the person who's on the other side, and you find yourself feeling like as if they are derelicting their duty somehow. They're betraying you because they won't join you. They won't take up arms and march with you on your crusade. If the answer to this question is yes, then I think you are really, really being sucked in deeply by the truth mob mentality, and you really need to stop, take a step back, use that introspection, that power of introspection that I talked about, the ability to see your own thoughts as if they were somebody else's. I mean, here's an example of what I mean. Do you ever find yourself, feeling, when you have these feelings, you immediately post on the group something in a very sort of hushed tone? Imagine yourself speaking in a very hushed tone. Say you're a member of a truth mob that's out to stop John Smith at all costs. Someone called John Smith. You post, I hear there are people in this group who are not taking the threat of John Smith seriously. There are people in this group who actually don't consider it important and don't consider it a priority to bring down John Smith. I would just like to say that if you are, I find it absolutely disgusting and appalling that these people feel the way they do. Shame on them. Shame on them. And once again, shame on them. Question number 5. Does the leader of your chosen side in the conflict explain calmly and rationally and in a dignified manner their case against their opponent, or do they just get angry and use lots of derogatory adjectives or rhetoric about them? This is important. So whoever is that the truth mob hates so much and is so angry with and so abusive towards, do they explain as in a do they treat you, the person they're talking to, as an intelligent adult? In other words, explain using evidence, which is what I've asked from people in these scenarios. Are they polite to you? Are they kind to you? And do they explain, as it says, in a rationally, in a calm and dignified manner? Or do they just say things like, well, that person is bad, they're evil, they're horrible, they're mean, and anyone who doesn't dislike them is equally mean and horrible and evil and disgusting, and all these other lists of synonyms they can come up with, as if they've got a thesaurus tucked inside them. That again is an important question to ask about the nature of the people involved in this truth mob. Question number 6. If you express doubts or ask questions of your leader about your side's cause, have you ever been threatened or felt put under pressure by them or others on your side as a result? So in other words, it's like that. Well, look, we're in this truth mob. Well, we wouldn't use the word truth mob. We're in this group of people, the Stop at John Smith Brigade or something like that. StopJohnSmith.com. Nothing like that. So it's really, I mean, are we doing the right thing here? Have we got everything right? Maybe John Smith's not such a bad guy after all. What's the response been? What? Are you questioning my views about John Smith? Are you suggesting you actually sticking up for John Smith? You're a John Smith supporter, things like that. Okay. Has that ever happened? Because if it is, then again, this is a sign of a truth mob. Question number 7. This is the last one. Has your leader or anybody else on your side chided you in any way, even just through veiled threats, forced misunderstanding and misjudgment, or passive aggression, for friendships you might have with people on the other side, personal relationships, or involvement with websites and organisations those on the other side are also involved in? So this is, again, this is a long question, but if the answer is yes, then again, this is a sign that you are involved in the truth mob, and that being involved in the truth mob means you are being brainwashed, basically. Now, what might struck you about this list of questions is that very similar questions are asked by people who are in anti-cult activism, those who are concerned about things like Scientology, or the Jehovah's Witnesses, or various other cults that have emerged, those that bring and cause them to do damage, them to themselves and others. And as I've said before, I made this point in the last film. Truth mobs are a kind of cult. They usually have a charismatic leader or two. They take over groups. They take over entire Facebook groups or forums, and it used to be forums. Now it's more often Facebook groups. They demand complete obedience and loyalty. Everything, from all the members of the group. All the members have to drop whatever they're doing and talk specifically about their crusade against John Smith, or whoever it is. And any questions, any doubts are not tolerated. You are either with them or you're with John Smith. And I mean, it's incredibly frustrating when you get into this. It's very easy to find yourself in this situation, and you may even find, without examining your own thoughts, you might end up starting to think like they are, simply because it's easier. It's easier simply to join them and to keep your mouth shut than to put up with all this aggravation, especially if it's a group you're fond of and you have a circle of friends on Facebook you like and you don't want to fall out with them. It's very, very easy just to kind of just do the easy thing and go along with it. But there is a solution. There is a solution I have found, actually, with the Darren Perks issue. I've got a good friend on Facebook, and I've known him a long time. I've met him several times. He's interested in UFOs like I am, has done some research in UFOs. He was one of these people who got on the Stop Darren Perks bandwagon, and he sadly joined in with the people who were critical of me because I wouldn't allow myself to be recruited into the anti-Darren Perks cult. And what happened is I still get on well with him. We just don't talk about it. I mean, that's a solution. You can just agree not to talk about it, even if it's just a tacit thing. You just do quietly. You just I'm not going to talk. You just talk about other things and make it clear you just don't want to get onto this subject because you don't agree with them, but you don't want to fall out with them. And it's sad to lose friends over little petty issues. If necessary, you might have to, but if you can avoid it, avoid it. But there are solutions. At the end of the day, it's not worth just getting sucked into these damn cults, these damn truth things. I mean, it's very, very pathetic. I mean, another thing I could add, I mean, I should have made this an 8-point list of questions. I didn't do that originally. Maybe when I next publish an article on this, I'll make it 8 points. 8 questions. But you could just say, well, look, what do you do apart from going around on the internet saying nasty things about John Smith? I mean, for instance, the accusations made against the targets of truth mobs are often obscene. They're accused of really the most obscene crimes against humanity sometimes. And my reply to them is, well, have you called the police? And they'll say, no. Well, what have you done then? I've set up a website called stopjohnsmith.com, and it goes into how evil he is. And that's the point where you need to back off and realise that this person is a brainwashed truth mob cultist.
And if you're not the kind of person who caves into this kind of pressure, or feels this kind of pressure, then you need to back off from that person. So I hope that helps.
Anyway, I informed the two ladies who contacted me on Facebook that I'm not going to allow them to press gang me into their truth mob against Ben Fellows. As far as I can see, from what I've seen, based on the evidence, Ben Fellows is a genuine person. I think he and Jackie mean well and have done some good. And if you disagree, like I said, you better be ready to be good, to be civil, and to present evidence. I don't want any rhetoric or any. I don't care how many different synonyms you can use for the word evil or shill or fraud or anything like that. I want evidence. The Kent Freedom Movement failed to provide evidence against Danielle Verite, and these two ladies have not provided evidence against Ben Fairhall. So I told them I'm not going to join your truth mob, and they of course then replied with a rude, snide comment, and I've not spoken to them since. And that's the way I feel. What I said to them goes for everybody else, including anyone watching this film, because I look at the world around me. Look at the child abuse that Ben Fellows talks about. Look at the chemtrails. Look at the GMO crops sprouting out from the bricks between from the gaps in the bricks in your houses. All the other things. I mean, where do you start? The bedroom tax, the EU, UFO disclosure. I mean, where do you start? Well, one thing's for certain: wherever you choose to start, when you start to take action against all the awful things that are going on in this world, as long as you start somewhere and actually do take action, and don't waste your time and energy on these pointless little schoolyard games. If we end up with a new world order, which I don't think we will, but should it happen, you are going to be in a position where your children will turn to you and say, Dad, what did you do? Or Mum, they'll say, Dad or Mum, what did you do to try and stop this from happening when you had the chance to stop it? And you're going to have to turn to them and reply, I did nothing. I did nothing at all to stop it because I was too busy chasing a woman with a colander on her head. So I don't... So if anyone's watching this, right, feels they have some burning personal score, some burning issue about someone being a shill or anything like that, or being bad, and you've got no evidence against them, you want to start a truth mob, and so you want me to get involved, you want me to plant my flag on your cause, just shut the fuck up and leave me alone. I don't want to know. Hospital Porter's pride and dignity stop the New World Order.